All right, so again, I am Patrick B. McCoy. This is Across the Arts, and this is our conversation series, and welcome. Again, I am so elated to have Michael here, as you heard in his formal introduction, Michael Stepniak, who is the Dean for Creativity and the Arts at Shenandoah University. There, I got it right this time. It's about four. So, Michael, first of all, I want to say to you, thank you so much. You've been not just in your roles, you've been very personable, you've been very in touch. The fact that you have really created this move of diversity, and not only at the conservatory, but at the university. So first, I want to actually lead off with the newly, I would say the inaugural season of the Shenandoah Conservatory Advisory Board. We have several of our members here today, Linda Hall and Geraldine Payne, both Alumna and myself, yes. But talk about, if you would, just a little bit about your vision behind that when you incepted that endeavor.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be here and to be among such illustrious arts leaders and arts supporters. Patrick, thanks so much for this opportunity. I'm truly honored. Yeah, an advisory board. I mean, those of you who are leaders in the arts know, at its best, an advisory board is a champion that spreads word about what's going on, that connects with the broader community, that advocates, and that also can help with fundraising, connecting with those donors who are passionate about the arts, passionate making a difference. I feel lucky being in the performing arts. I mean, the two things that people can so often get behind are, one, young people striving to grow, and number two, the arts that transform. And if you have those two things together, I'd hate to be a dean of a pharmacy trying to raise money, but overseeing the performing arts, I mean, it's a thrill, and there's really nothing more inspiring than that young person that has tremendous talent that hasn't yet developed, and that catches on and then starts developing. It's one of the most beautiful things in the world. And so yeah, the advisory board was a way to really put our conservatory in the next gear and to move forward. We've been doing so many wonderful things, attracting great faculty, building extraordinary programs that are nationally ranked. But this was wonderful to get a group of enthusiastic supporters and friends to advance our cause.
I like the fact that you mentioned young people. You're a young person too, but I want to go back a little bit further. I want to go back a little bit further in your youth, because you are a musician. So being a musician is also at the core, I would think, of everything you do. So talk a little bit about your viola and how you were introduced to that in chamber music and your interest now.
I think many of us who are musicians have pretty complicated relationships with our identities. So my parents came to Australia from Poland right before I was born. So they knew what it meant to really lose everything and start from scratch. I'm the third of three boys. And I started playing by ear when I was 3, going on 4 on the piano. And they knew that there was something serious, musical talent. And so I asked to learn the violin, and I started that way. But by about 9 or 10, it became clear that I was actually doing this really seriously. And my parents thought, musicians, they'll either be destitute or mentally unstable, maybe a lawyer or a doctor, but they wondered what was going to happen. And so I had this relationship with music where, those of you who are musicians, you never feel as alive as you do in that moment of music making. And I connected to that. And yet I felt the burden of immigrant parents saying, you've got to do good. You've got to make your way. So it was an interesting, but yeah, my identity quickly became entwined with music making. One of my most vivid memories when I turned 11, I wanted to practice starting earlier in the morning, and my parents said I would only be allowed to do that if I went and practiced in the garage. And which was fine, but it was an unheated garage. And I remember those early mornings, but I was going to get my practice in. And you do what you've got to do, right?
Wow. So I want to go back.
Sorry,
No. I want to go back to the conservatory. As I mentioned, early on, you were a longtime dean at the conservatory, and that was more, focused there. Could you talk a little bit about some of the differences that will be in your new role?
Yeah. Oh, I love that role. The chance to find great people and give them space and support to do great work. I mean, there's really nothing like it. But overseeing personnel crises, 14 years of doing that, it was enough. It was enough. No, I'm so proud of what was happening with the conservatory, and that still is my passion. But the university gave me an opportunity really to do a couple of additional things. One, we have a great need to replace one of our critical older buildings. And so there's some major fundraising ahead, and they wanted to make sure that I was investing more energy and able to do that more. So that was one piece. And the other piece was there was an opportunity to further advance the arts across the university, including, but beyond the university. And the creative arts and creative industry areas now go into really some amazing places. For example, Shenandoah has one of the leading VR AR programs, virtual reality, augmented reality degree programs. And that has a whole area of design. And so there's artistic work being done, in a field that, wasn't in existence when we were growing up. But there are all sorts of pockets like that of really creative artistic work happening, and how to advance that in the university. And also, the conservatory is this jewel within the university, but how do we further enrich the entire institution from that? And so one of my opportunities is really to think of creative ways. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm meeting with health professions, leaders, and deans, saying, are there areas in your professional studies where your students aren't getting something that you think they should need? And one area, for example, that they keep coming back to, I heard this from the Dean of Nursing recently, was navigating difficult conversations. If you're in the health professions and dealing with patients, you often have to do that. And communication. Well, we have courses in theater, in acting, in improv that can directly help support that. And so, one of my jobs is now being a matchmaker and helping the conservatory be a further resource for that larger university.
That is wonderful. So, Michael, not only are you, a dean and the arts administrator, you're also an author, and you've authored several books. Talk to me about a couple of your books. Well, let's start with this one. So he has a few that we can look at, and hopefully we can order some. But this book is A More Promising Musical Future, Leading Transformational Change in Music in Higher Education.
Yeah.
So that's important. So let's talk about
it's change is so hard. And higher education makes it even harder. And then music, you would think that we're full of rebels, but it can be conservative. It can be hard to change.
Yeah.
And so I was invited to, I'd written one book about change in music and higher education. I was invited to write another, and I said, well, I'd be happy to edit if I could bring together a few people that I really admire and bring their voices to this. This was a book that was published by Routledge Press together with College Music Society. And the four voices I brought together, Jesmyn Parker, who was voice. She was at Berkeley previously and now is in Dallas. Leader in diversity and equity and inclusion, and speaking about what does it mean to really make meaningful steps forward in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion in music and higher education. David Cutler about innovation, Ryan Pertle, and another dean, about changing the model, and Kendra Whitlock Ingram, who's a wonderful arts presenter, who was writing about, as arts presenter, what are the skills that they're looking for? I think all of the areas of change that we might pursue in higher education, all of them are meaningful. I think none are as stubborn for many educational institutions in music as the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think there's a misperception by many leaders that you know what, you need to do a few things and then you're all set, you're on the right path. But it's a commitment that has to be done and redone daily. One of the things I really loved about Jasmine Parker's chapter in this book is she said, and she's speaking to deans and directors in music schools, and she's saying, you know what it is? It's heart and mind work, and it happens at the individual level. How do you get your school to be more inclusive? It begins with every faculty member. And it's a wonderful personal message. And, one of the things that I think I learned most from my time as being Dean of the Conservatory, and I come back to it again, hiring people. It starts with the people. It starts with the people that you hire. It starts with the people that you promote, that you give space to. You want people who will do even bolder things than you imagine. And so anyway, but
No, that's perfect. And that leads into my next one, because many of us who are in the room who are music students or went to different institutions for music, sometimes your I'll speak for me personally. I think that sometimes that the creativity gets stifled, because when a person comes in with their own skill set, their own cultural background, then they're told this is not, this is irrelevant. You have to do this to get here, but not recognizing that what they're offering you is here. So can you talk to me about what has been your experience in including various genres in the whole conservatory format?
Yeah. I wish it were easier and simpler. It took me 4 years of conversation with faculty for us to create our first popular music degree. And this was people that had to get their heads around, you can actually study this really seriously within a conservatory level, and it can count, right? Mm-hmm. Because the thing has been, many conservatories have said, well, here's the music that counts. Mm-hmm. And for long, it was just classical music. And then grudgingly, jazz a little. Mm-hmm. And then that became, okay, jazz is full. And now the question, anyway, it's been a hard and difficult road, but again, it's always made easier when you add to the mix people who get the conversation. One of my recent hires that I just adore, Julieta Corrington, wonderful flutist, daughter of a great composer. Exactly. It's someone that was so special to our community, specifically because she understands what does it mean to expand audiences, what does it mean to value people's music, to meet them where they are. So the more people like that you have in the mix, the easier this work is to do. But it's hard work. Yeah.
And another great hire that you have is Rod Bester.
Yeah.
I know that we were on the Zoom, we'd have a chance to talk extensively, but he definitely someone who can really bring that mix of different styles, different idioms to the program. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment because I do want to take time to acknowledge. I know we kind of informally did it when you came in, and it might prompt some other questions that you might want to ask. But of course, I want to start here. Aaron, I know you're not on the camera, but of course, Aaron Myers, who, as I mentioned, is the newly minted executive director of the DC Commission for the Arts here in our nation's capital. So, Aaron, Arlene King-Berry, who is on the board of directors of the Heritage Signature Chorale. We have Terri Allen, who is the executive director of the Coalition for African Americans in Performing Arts, whose mission is to bring color to the classics. We have, I'm going to point out a few people. I want to, of course, we have the wife of Michael. Michael, your wife's name?
And Chef.
And Chef. Thank you so much. And then Adam Graham, who's there on the, I'm trying to go around here. Adam Graham, who's on the bench. She's a fabulous organist here in our nation's capital. Just an extraordinary, and actually he is the one who put this event together as far as the charcuterie and things of that nature. So a man of many talents and a dear friend. Thank you so much. Caroline Edwards, who's sitting there on that bench over there, she's one of my former choir members at Trinity Church, DC, soprano, and she's always there when I need her. When I didn't have a car, she was giving me a ride. Dana Anderson, who is the director of strategic initiatives for the Heritage Signature Chorale here. Welcome, Dana. DJ Robinson, my dear friend. And I know she was not gonna like this, but a wonderful composer, just all things all the way around. And yes, I will go ahead and do that. Dr. Alvin Reeves is in the internal medicine field, dear friend of mine, frat brother, and Dr. Edric Coleman. Edric, which your high school that you're at?
Oakland Mills High School in Howard County. Oakland Mills.
Oakland Mills High School in Howard County. All right. And also collegiate experience, teach at the collegiate level and so forth, alum of Shenandoah University Conservatory. I'm going to shout this young man out again because our photographer, Dr. Ceylon Mitchell, of course, he's with M3 Mitchell Media Marketing. I hope I said that right. I got it. Extraordinary flautist, and that's how I really know him, coming to his concerts, writing notes, and then I got to experience this other side of him. Linda Hall, what can I say about Linda Hall? Linda Hall is one of the first, and I must go ahead and say this because it's a young Black musician coming out of the conservatory or musical experience and higher ed. It's very important to see that reflection of ourselves in that setting. And so when I first came out of school, I used to go to all these ACA conventions, and one of the first directors I met, probably the first, was Linda Hall. So they come on over here, she pulled me under her wing, her and Joyce Garrett, they were the two, and we would hang together, so forth. And her choir, she's, I guess, I don't think you retired though, but she was Baltimore City College High School Choir singing nights, fabulous choir, and I got to, hear many of their performances. So Linda Hall. And now you want to introduce your guest?
Reverend Renee Hammock.
Reverend Renee Hammock, and we've met many times, a wonderful person, and another Shenandoah alumni, Geraldine Payne. Yes, indeed. So I think I made the full circle pretty good. So yeah, I know my people. So Michael, I did all that to say that we have all come together to support your efforts and certainly to congratulate you on your promotion. And at this time, if there's anybody I would like, don't be shy. Are there any questions that you would like to ask Michael that some of the things that he resonated about the conversation today? Yes.
I, as a professor of education, and I consider myself an eternal music student because you can always learn more. I'm concerned about enrollment, especially in view of the affirmative action decision, and was wondering, in your vision for the future, how can that be addressed, not just at your university, but across the nation?
Can I talk to your work? I think what's been happening for a while, but now what's happening with purpose is educational leaders saying, how do we get to that goal and yet maybe do something that it's called something different than what it used to be called? Can we have different tactics and still come up with a group of people that are diverse in so many ways? I looked at my wife because her program, physician assistant program at Shenandoah, is one of the national models of having one of the most diverse student groups without using any of those outlawed matrices. And so there are ways to do that, to get to a place where, and I mean, the point is, what do you gain when you have a mixed group of kids within a classroom? Well, they better learn how to live in a diverse society and world. People with different backgrounds and viewpoints are more likely to come up with creative solutions to problems. There is just benefit upon benefit. And so it's critical, that we continue heading in that direction. Can we talk politics? I'm trying to avoid talking politics. I mean,
Okay.
I'm among friends.
Yeah, well, we're our last tribute. I don't want to get that, so.
No.
Just go ahead and talk. Courageous conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, legislatures are making this more difficult.
Yeah.
It was hard to begin with, and now it's just gotten more difficult. But that just means you think about this harder, you work on it harder, you get more creative, you call something by some other name, right? You do what you've got to do to head in the direction that's right to head. Yeah, there are no easy answers. This is a conversation that's happening intensely at a national level. So far we've been relatively fortunate that we're in DC and Virginia and Maryland. We're not in states where the state legislature has been pushing at this as well, like Florida and Texas and elsewhere. But that's not to say it isn't coming at some point. So I appreciate your question. I don't have an easy answer. I'm just saying I think many of us appreciate it and are fighting the fight that needs to be fought.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the wonderful music therapists I was just thrilled to hire a number of years back, Hakeem Leonard, has ended up being our university's associate provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's been a tremendous resource for us within the conservatory to have a thought leader. You need people who are on board, and you need some champions, but then you also need really skilled people. And we've been certainly blessed to have that with Hakeem's leadership. Yeah. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
Thank you for having me.
Any other questions? Any other great questions?
yeah.
As a person who is not musically inclined or musically challenged, but certainly appreciates music, the arts, what can we do to support what your institution is doing and what other institutions are doing, both locally and globally, in your efforts?
Attend performances. I mean, attend performances as you can. Yeah, right. There are many ways to support. You can support as an audience member, you can support as a champion, you can support as someone that tells a young person, hey, have you thought about, and name that institution. All of those ways count. Thank you for asking that question. There's so many ways to ultimately our business is about connecting from one heart to another. You've got to train, all of that has to happen, but ultimately it's in that moment of community. As musicians, we're really not much at all if there isn't an audience. right? Yeah.
And I'm glad you asked that because that was probably the twofold reason why I was inspired to host this event, because I hope that it would show initiative for other members of the university or the community or the board to have such events to generate those funds. I heard somebody say write checks or scan QR codes or whatever the case may be. I'll be remiss if I didn't go back and speak about, especially when I was first approached about being a part of the Dean's Circle. And when I walked into the space, Linda Hall was there. And I distinctly remember this, Linda. I don't know if I should have shared, but we both fist bumped me there because we were just like, yeah, we were in a position to really support. And I just hope that that support really, at whatever the level of the support, even if you're just present at these arts events, it's very crucial because, as you know, arts and public spaces, as far as especially music education in your public schools, you have the music teacher on the cart going down this hall to this class and that class, and then jumping in their car going to this school and that school. So we just really need more support for the arts. That's a great point. Anybody else? Come on, don't be shy. Okay.
When we think of business of the arts,
Yeah.
what more could be done to better prepare young people as they leave university to enter into the world? And what expectations when it comes to standard of living, cost of living, should they really be prepared to expect
Yeah.
in this day and age?
Maybe I can speak to it from the Shenandoah Conservatory specifically. And let me speak to it in two ways. Number one of the really interesting things about Shenandoah Conservatory is in the music area is most of our performers aren't performance majors. They're music education majors, they're music therapy majors, they're music production, recording, and technology majors. So they're in all of these fields where there's great job placement. And so unusually, if you went to most other conservatories, they might have a music education program, but that's on the side, and those people don't get to perform in the major ensembles, right? And our conservatory is really the opposite. So I'm saying that because one of the ways that we do well in placing so many of our students is because our students are so focused on multiple areas, professional areas, and often leave with a degree that is in a more practical field, even though they're passionate performers. So that's number one. Number two, and more specifically to your question, for long, university music schools and conservatories have been preparing brilliantly technically skilled performers who knew very little about business, who knew very little about how to, do their own taxes, support their way, make their way, and who didn't have a sense of what really was in front of them once they graduated. We've done, I think, quite well among other conservatories in bringing into our curriculum courses that focus around business skills, around practical skills, around what does being a musician in the 20th century look like. But there are other ways that we've really sought to build critical skills. So one of the things that's unusual, and we're unusual nationally to do this, each year we close the entire school down for 1 week, and everything is turned over to students, and they do student-led collaborative work with a full-day festival at the end. We did that as a real major investment because we thought, one of the most critical skills that students need to have is self-driven work and collaborative work. And right from the start, the first year that we did that, we did a survey at the end, and students repeatedly said, this was one of the most powerful learning experiences I've had to date. The fact that I had to own what I was doing, be in charge of what I was doing, get people together. If someone didn't show up, there was no one for me to go and talk to. I had to figure it out. But having these practical lessons, this is so making sure that their education is infused with experiences like that is also a critical way to make sure that they're more motivated, driven, self-sufficient, collaborative, all of those things going out. That still doesn't mean it's easy to get a job in the performance sector. I mean, jazz, classical music is the same. I mean, this is a really competitive field, and you can be at the top level and still find it very difficult and end up ultimately in a very different degree. I feel this acutely because not infrequently I'll have parents approach me, and for the first time they have a musician in the family and they say, I'm scared about what the future is for Sally. What can you tell me? One of the things that I have learned along the way is someone that takes music performance really seriously and invests their full self. They may or may not end up a professional musician. But if they have made that investment, they've done it with integrity, they've done it with courage, and they've built some appropriate aligned skills, they will be a success in life. They might not be a musician, they might be a music lover. They might end up being in a medical field or in real estate or something else. But I haven't met anyone yet who did this work, did this study seriously, and is at a point in their life where they say they regret it. But it's challenging, and I think we were pretty honest and upfront with our students about that. A big topic, yeah.
I definitely want to echo as well to Aaron's point, because I want to speak from my experience just very briefly. I know that when I was in school studying music, it definitely was a focus on the repertoire. You did the juries, you did the practicing, you went through all of it, and then when you got to the end, it's like, okay, what's next? When the music stops, what's next? So that business, the saving grace of social media, i.e. Facebook, etc., that you are your own PR. If you really want to get the information out about yourself, you don't have to rely on the agent necessarily. You have the social media aspect and so forth and so on. So, it's kind of like now you have a little bit more innovation, but it would be helpful, to definitely have it, integrated into the curriculum. Like sometimes, yeah.
And one of the things that we've changed with senior recital is that the primary thing that's done now is it's called a PM, Personal Musicianship Project, PMJ. And so the point is, it's not previously, right? You practice, and you show up in a recital hall and you do your recital and then you're done, right? But a personal musicianship project is you have to shape an event, you have to build an audience, you have to go and market for it, you have to go and get the place, right, booked that you're going to do, and you have all of these things that you have to have experience doing, right? Because people aren't there just waiting to come and hear you. You have to convince them, right? I have a very dear friend who, a dean at USC, who oversees both a classical music and a popular music degree program. And he said, the difference between classical musicians and popular musicians, classical musicians are in a practice room waiting to be discovered, and popular musicians are walking the hallways to share their music with people, right? And I think we do classical music well to the extent that we approach it like that, like building, connecting with people, bringing people in, making projects that matter. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we have one more question before we have a final wrap up? Yes.
I have sort of a comment and then a question as well. My comment when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, those catch words, and I've been dealing with a new aspect of my life, and I found that this sense of belonging seems to be more comforting to people, as opposed to how these inclusion and diversity words have been viewed as negative. It's not negative to me, but some people view it as. So that sense of we all want to belong, to be part of, and to feel comfortable in that space. I'm just putting that out there. Now, I love the idea of interdisciplinary connection and going back to speech pathology and the use of the vocal cords, or for the aging voice or the gospel voice, or using physical therapy to exercise the body in order to become good and agile in your things. And I'd like to, if you could talk a little bit about this. I know they had the opportunity where, I don't remember the name of the program, where they did some things this summer. The students presented their work.
Yeah.
With the vocal aspects and modeling and using technology.
Yeah, we happen to have, I mean, we're this little school, right, in the country, and yet we have we have all of these top programs in vocal research. We have one of the top graduate vocal research programs in the country. More research being done and presented by our graduate and doctoral students than any other institution around the country. And here the focus there is on vocal health, and those people end up going into multiple disciplines. It's not for everyone. I mean, you have to deal with cadavers and all of that sort of stuff if you're in those programs. But yeah, it's another example of that program where you can come with a love of music, but if you have an additional interest and passion, you can build with that and all of a sudden have so many professional opportunities open for you. Yeah, vocal pedagogy and research. David Meyer was one of the country's top researchers. And we've partnered with virtual reality, augmented reality, creating the country's first model of a larynx that you can put goggles on and you can look at the larynx and you can have the larynx sing different vowels and you can see what happens and you can move the larynx. And I mean, all sorts of really amazing things. But
Thank you. Well, Michael, this has been a great, the afternoon is not over, but as far as our conversation, this has been a wonderful conversation. Again, thank you so much for agreeing to come and let us vet you on your new position at Shenandoah University. And I hope the network of people who are in the audience, who the people on the camera can't necessarily see, but yeah, many community organizations, especially with Aaron and Terri, with that diversity piece and things of that nature, the heritage students around and so forth and so on. That could really help in that mission at Shenandoah. There's also, for those who are here, of course, there's literature and so forth about Shenandoah. Once we have this moment that we're about to have, feel free to say the event is not over. But what I would like for right now is, first of all, thank you for being here. And next, what I would like to do, I would like Linda Hall, who's a member of the Shenandoah Conservatory Advisory Board, to come forward, as well as Shirley, you can come forward too if you like. And Michael. Maybe, yeah, uh-oh. So, Michael, this was just a small token. As I mentioned, this is across the arts with Pastor McCoy. We present this recognition of achievement to Michael Stepniak, Ed.D., longtime Dean of Shenandoah Conservatory, Winchester, Virginia, on his promotion to executive dean for creativity and the arts at Shenandoah University, given on this day.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Felt like they're taking up. Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I get to keep this?
Yeah, of course. And now here's the part. So now here's the part.
To the arts.
To the arts.
Yeah.
Edit this and